ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Namaste, my dear friends. This is video number 36 on Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna Parmahamsa. This video starts with Monday, October 20, 1884. 2 days after the worship of Kali, the Marwadis of the Bada Bazar section of Calcutta were celebrating the Annakutta festival. Sri Ramakrishna had been invited by the Marwadi devotees to the ceremony at 12 Malik Street. It was the second day of the bright fortnight of the moon. The festival connected with the worship of Kali, known as the Festival of Light, was still going on at Bada Bazar. About 3 o'clock in the afternoon, M and the younger Gopal came to Bada Bazar. M had in his hand a bundle of clothes he had purchased for Sri Ramakrishna. Malik Street was jammed with people, bullock carts and carriages. As M and Gopal approached Malik Street, they noticed Sri Ramakrishna in a carriage which could hardly move because of the jam. Baburam and Ram Chakravarti were with the master. He smiled at M and Gopal. Sri Ramakrishna alighted from the carriage. With Baburam, he proceeded on foot to the house of his host, M leading the way. They saw the courtyard of the house filled with big piles of clothes which were being loaded into bullock carts for shipment. The Marwadi host greeted the master and led him to the third floor of the house. A painting of Kali hung on the wall. Sri Ramakrishna bowed before it. He sat down and became engaged in conversation with the devotees. One of the Marwadis began to stroke his feet. The master asked him to stop. After reflecting a minute, he said, "All right, you can stroke them a little." His words were full of compassion. Master to M, "What about your school?" M, "Today is a holiday, sir." Master, smiling, "Tomorrow there will be a musical recital of the Chandi at Adhar's house." Master and the Marwadi Pandit. The host sent a Pandit to Sri Ramakrishna. He saluted the master and took a seat. Soon they were engaged in conversation. They talked about spiritual things. Master, "God incarnates himself for the bhakta and not for the jnani." Pandit, "I incarnate myself in every age for the protection of the good, for the destruction of the wicked, and for the establishment of dharma. God becomes man first for the joy of the bhakta and secondary for the dis- destruction of the wicked. The jnani has no desire." Master, smiling, "But I have not got rid of all desires. I have the desire for love of God." The Pandit's son entered the room. He saluted the master and took a seat. Master to the Pandit, "Well, what is bhava and what is bhakti?" Pandit, "Meditation on God mellows the mind. This mellowness is called bhava. It is like the thawing of ice when the sun rises." Master, "Well, what is prema?" The Pandit and Sri Ramakrishna were talking in Hindustani. The former gave some sort of explanation of prema. Master to the Pandit, "No, no, That is not the meaning. Prema means such love for God that it makes a man forget the world and also his body, which is so dear to him. Chaitanya Deva had prema, Pandit. Yes, sir, one behaves like a drunkard, master. Some people develop bhakti and others do not. How do you explain that, sir? Pandit, there is no partiality in God. He is the wish fulfilling tree. Whatever a man asks of God, he gets, but he must go near the tree to ask the boon. The Pandit said all this in Hindustani. The master explained it to him in Bengali. Different kinds of samadhi. Master, sir, please describe samadhi to us. Pandit, there are two kinds of samadhi, savikalpa and nirvikalpa. In nirvikalpa samadhi, the functioning of the mind stops altogether. Master, yes, the mind completely takes the form of reality. The distinction between the meditator and the object of meditation does not exist. There are two other kinds of samadhi, Chetana and Jada. Narada and Sukdeva attained Chetana Samadhi. Is not that true, sir? Master, yes, sir, that is so, Master. Further, there are the Unmana Samadhi and the Sithita Samadhi. Is not that true, sir? The Pandit remained silent. He did not venture an opinion. Master, well, sir, through the practice of japa and austerity, one can get occult powers such as walking on the water of the Ganges. Is not that true, Pandit? Yes, one can, but a devotee doesn't want them. The conversation continued for some time. The Pandit said that he would visit the master at Dakshineswar the next Ekadasi day. Master, your boy is very nice, Pandit. Well, Revered sir, all this is transitory. It is like the waves in a river, one goes down and another comes up. Master, you have substance in you. After a few minutes, the Pandit saluted Sri Ramakrishna. He said, I shall have to perform my daily devotions. Please let me go. Master, oh, sit down, sit down. The Pandit sat down again. The conversation turned to Hatha Yoga. The Pandit discussed the subject with the master in Hindustani. Sri Ramakrishna said, yes, that is also a form of austerity. But the Hatha Yogi identifies himself with his body. His mind dwells on his body alone. The Pandit took leave of the master. Sri Ramakrishna conversed with the Pandit's son. Master, one can understand the Bhagavata well if one has already studied the Nyaya, the Vedanta, and the other systems of philosophy. Is not that so, Pandit's son? Yes, sir, it is very necessary to study the Sankhya philosophy. The conversation went on. Sri Ramakrishna was leaning against a big pillow. The devotees were sitting on the floor. Lying in that position, the master began to sing, Brother, joyfully cling to God, thus striving some day you may attain Him. Their host entered the room and saluted Sri Ramakrishna. He was a pious man and devoted to the master. The Pandit's son was still there. The master asked if the Panini, the Sanskrit grammar, was taught in the schools. He further asked about the Nyaya and the Vedanta philosophies. The host did not show much interest in the discussion and changed the subject. Host Revered, sir, what is the way for us? Master, chanting the name and glories of God, living in the company of holy men, and earnestly praying to God. Host, please bless me, sir. that I may pay less and less attention to worldly things. Master smiling, how much attention do you give to the world? 50% laughter. Host, you know that, sir, we cannot achieve anything without the grace of a holy person like yourself. Master, if you please God, everyone will be pleased. It is God alone that exists in the heart of the holy man. Host, nothing of course remains unrealized when one attains God. If a man attains God, he can give up everything else. If a man gets a rupee, he gives up the joy of a penny. Master, a little spiritual discipline is necessary, though the practice of discipline one gradually obtains divine joy. Suppose a jar with money inside is hidden deep under the earth and someone wants to possess it. In that case, he must take the trouble of digging for it. As he digs, he perspires. After much digging, the spade strikes the metal jar. He feels a thrill at the sound. The more sound the spade makes striking against the jar, the more joy he feels. Pray to Rama, meditate on him, he will certainly provide you with everything. Host, Revered sir, you are Rama himself. Master, how is that? The waves belong to the river. Does the river belong to the waves? Host, Rama dwells only in the heart of holy man. He cannot be seen in any other way. There is no incarnation of God at the present time. Master, smiling, how do you know there is no divine incarnation? The host remained silent. Master, all cannot recognize an incarnation. When Narada visited Rama, Rama prostrated himself before Narada and said, we are worldly creatures. How can we be sanctified unless holy men like you visit us? Further, Rama went into exile in the forest to redeem his father's pledges. He saw that since hearing of the exile, the rishis of the forest had been fasting. Many of them did not know that Rama was none other than the Supreme Brahma. Host, you too are that same Rama. Master, for heaven's sake, never say that. As Sri Ramakrishna spoke these words, he bowed down to the host and said, with folded hands, that Rama dwells in all beings, he exists everywhere in the universe. I am your servant, it is Rama himself who has become all men, animals, and other living beings. Host, but sir, we do not know that, Master. Whether you know it or not, you are Rama. Host, you are free from love and hatred. Master, how so? I engaged a carriage to bring me to Calcutta and advanced the coachman 3 annas. But he did not turn up. I became very angry with him. He is a very wicked man. He made me suffer a lot. Sri Ramakrishna was resting. The Marwadi devotees had been singing bhajan on the roof. They were celebrating the Krishna festival. Arrangements had been made for worship and food offering. As the host's request, the master went to see the image. He bowed down before the deity. Sri Ramakrishna was profoundly moved as he stood before the image. With folded hands he said, O Govinda, thou art my soul, thou art my life. Victory to Govinda, hallowed be the name of Govinda. Thou art the embodiment of Satchitananda, O Krishna. O Krishna, Krishna is knowledge. Krishna is mind, Krishna is life, Krishna is soul, Krishna is body, Krishna is caste, Krishna is family. O Govinda, my life and soul. Uttering these words, Sri Ramakrishna went into Samadhi. He remained standing. Ram Chatterjee spotted him. After a long time, the master regained consciousness of the world. The Marwari devotees were about to take out the image. The offering of food was to take place outside the room. The master joined the procession of devotees. The food was offered with arti and music. Sri Ramakrishna fanned the image. Then began the ceremony of feeding the Brahmins. They were seated on the roof. The master and his devotees also partook of the prasad. Sri Ramakrishna took leave of the host. It was evening and the street was jammed as before with people and vehicles. He said, "Let us get out of the carriage. It can go by a back street." Proceeding on foot, he found that a betel leaf seller had opened his stall in front of a small room that looked like a hole. One could not possibly enter it without bending one's head. The master said how painful it is to be shut in such a small space. That is the way of worldly people, and they are happy in such a life. The carriage came up after making the detour. The master entered it with Baburam M and Ram Chatterjee. The younger Gopal sat on the roof of the carriage. A beggar woman with a baby on her arm stood in front of the carriage waiting for alms. The master said to M, "Have you any money?" Gopal gave her something. The carriage rolled along Bada Bazar. Everywhere there were signs of great festivity. The night was dark but illuminated with myriads of lights. The carriage came to the Chitpur road, which was also brightly lighted. The people moved in lines like ants. The crowd looked at the gaily decorated stores and stalls on both sides of the road. There were sweetmeat stores and perfume stalls. Pictures, beautiful and gaudy, hung from the walls. Well-dressed shopkeepers sprayed the visitors with rose water. The carriage stopped in front of a perfume stall. The master looked at the pictures and lights and felt happy like a child. People were talking loudly. He cried out, "Go forward, move on." He laughed. He said to Baburam with a loud laugh, "Move on, what are you doing?" The devotees laughed too. They understood that the master wanted them to move forward to God and not to be satisfied with their present state. The carriage drove on. The master noticed that M had brought some clothes for him. M had with him two pieces of unbleached and two pieces of washed cloth. But the master had asked him only for the unbleached ones. He said to M, "Give me the unbleached ones. You may keep the others. All right, you may give me one of them." M, "Then shall I take back one piece, master?" "Then take both." M, "As you please, sir." "Master, you can give me those when I need them. You see, yesterday Benny Paul wanted me to carry away some food for Ramlal. I told him I could not. It is impossible for me to lay up for the future." "And that is all right, sir. I shall take back the two pieces of washed cloth." Master tenderly, Don't you see, if any desire arises in my mind, it is for the good of you all. You are my own. I shall tell you if I need anything. Humbly, yes, sir. Referring to a devotee, Sri Ramakrishna said, I said to him yesterday, tomorrow I shall go to Bada Bazar. Please meet me there. Do you know what he said? He said, the tram fare will be 1 anna. Where shall I get it? He had been to Benny Paul's garden yesterday and had officiated there as a priest. No one had asked him to do it. He had put on the show himself. He wanted people to know that he was a member of the Brahmos 2M. Can you tell me what he meant when he said that the tram would cost him 1 anna? The conversation turned to the Annakutta festival of the Marwadis. Master to the devotees, what you have seen here, one sees at Vrindavan too. Rakhal has been seeing the same thing there, but the amount of food at Vrindavan is higher and more people gather there. There you also see the Govardhan hill. That is the only difference. Did you notice the Marwari's devotion? That is the real Hindu ideal. That is the Sanatana Dharma. Did you notice their joy when they carried the image in possession? They were happy to note that they bore the throne of God on their shoulders. The Hindu religion alone is the Sanatana Dharma. The various creeds you hear of nowadays have come into existence through the will of God and will disappear again through His will. They will not last forever. Therefore, I say, I bow down at the feet of even the modern devotees. The Hindu religion has always existed and will always exist. M was going home. He saluted the master and got out of the carriage near Shobha Bazar. Sri Ramakrishna proceeded to Dakshineswar in a happy mood. Chapter number 33 with various devotees. Sunday, October 26, 1884. It was afternoon and many devotees were present in the master's room. Among them were Manomohan, Mahima, Charan and M. They were joined later by Isan and Hajra. Balram and Rakhal were still staying at Vrindavan. The many young boys who at this time began to seek the master's company later became his intimate disciples. Latu lived with the master and Jogin, who lived in the village, was a frequent visitor. Sri Ramakrishna, happy child of the Divine Mother, that he was radiated a joy and peace that were reflected in the hearts of his devotees and found expression in their happy faces. They were seated on the floor and had their eyes fixed on the master, who was standing in a pensive mood like a boy. God in all beings, Master to Manomohan, I see Rama in all things. You are all sitting here, but I see only Rama in every one of you. Manomohan, yes sir, it is Rama who has become everything, but as you see, though all water is Narayana, yet some water is fit for drinking, some for washing the hands and face, and some only for cleaning pots and pans. Master, it is true, but I see that it is God Himself who has become everything, the universe and its living beings. Presently, the master sat down on the small couch near his bed. Master to Mahima Charan, there is no question of my being truthful, but must I develop a mania for it? If I once say that I shall not eat, then it is impossible for me to eat, even if I am hungry. Again, if I ask a particular man to take my water jug to the pine grove, he alone must carry it. If another man carries it, he will have to take it back. What a fix I am in. Is there no way out of it? Besides, I can't carry anything with me, neither food nor betel leaf. For that means laying up for the future. I can't carry a little clay in my hand. Just then a man entered the room and told the master that Herda was waiting to see him in Jadoo Malik's garden near the gate. The master said to the devotees, I shall have to see Herda. Please don't leave the room. He put on his slippers and went towards the east gate of the temple garden. Am accompanying him. The road through the garden was covered with red brick dust. The manager of the temple, who was standing on the road, saluted Sri Ramakrishna. The master passed the north entrance of the temple compound where the bearded sentries sat. On his left he passed the Kuthi, the building used by the proprietors of the temple. Then he walked on down the road, which was lined on both sides with flowering trees, passing the reservoir on his right, and went outside the temple garden. He found Herday waiting for him near the gate of Jadoo Malik's garden. God in all beings. At the sight of the master, Herday, who had been standing there with folded hands, prostrated himself before him. When the master told him to get up, he rose and began to cry like a child. How strange! Tears also appeared in the master's eyes. He wiped them away with his hands. Herday had made him suffer endless agonies, yet the master wept for him. Master, why are you here now? Herday weeping. I have come to see you. To whom else shall I tell my sorrows? Sri Ramakrishna smiled and said to him by way of consolation, one cannot avoid such sorrows in the world. Pleasure and pain are inevitable in worldly life, pointing to aim. That is why they come here now and then. They get peace of mind by hearing about God. What is your trouble? Hear the weeping. I am deprived of your company and so I suffer. Master, why was it not you who said to me, you follow your ideal and let me follow mine? Here the yes, I did say that, but what did I know? Master, I shall say goodbye to you now. Come another day and we shall talk together. Today is Sunday and many people have come to see me. They are waiting in my room. Have you had a good crop in the country? Here that it is not bad. Master, let me say goodbye. Come another day. Herday again prostrated himself before the master, who started back to his room with M. Master to M. He tormented me as much as he served me. When my stomach trouble had reduced my body to a couple of bones and I could not eat anything, he said to me one day, look at me how well I eat. You have just taken a fancy that you can't eat. Again he said, you are a fool. If I were not living with you, where would your profession of holiness be? One day he tormented me so much that I stood on the embankment ready to give up my body by jumping into the Ganges, which was then at flood tide, and became speechless at these words of the master. For such a man he had shed tears a few minutes before. Master to M. Well, he served me a great deal. Then why should he have fallen on such evil days? He took care of me like a parent bringing up a child. As for me, I would remain unconscious of the world day and night. Besides, I was ill for a long time. I was completely at his mercy and did not know how to answer Sri Ramakrishna, so he kept silent. Sri Ramakrishna returned to his room and sat on the small couch. The devotees had been waiting for him eagerly. Several devotees from Nagar had arrived. One of them came forward to question the master. Bhava and Mahabhava devotees, sir, we hear that you go into Samadhi and experience ecstasy. Please explain why and how you get into that mood. Master Sri Radha used to experience Mahabhava. If any of her companions wanted to touch her while she was in that state, another of them would say, please do not touch that body, the playground of Sri Krishna. Krishna is now sporting in her body. It is not possible to experience Bhava or Mahabhava without the realization of God. When a fish comes up from a great depth, you see a movement on the surface of the water, and if it is a big one, there is much splashing about. That's why a devotee laughs and weeps and dances and sings in the ecstasy of God. One cannot remain in bhava very long. People take a man to be crazy if he sits before a mirror and looks at his face all the time. Discipline for God vision. Devotee, sir, we hear that you see God. If you do, please show him to us. Master, everything depends on God's will. What can a man do? While chanting God's name, sometimes tears flow and at the other time the eyes remain dry. While meditating on God, some days I feel a great deal of inner awakening and some days I feel nothing. A man must work, only then can he see God. One day in an exalted mood I had a vision of the Haldapukur. I saw a low caste villager drawing water after pushing aside the green scum. Now and then he took up the water in the palm of his hand and examined it. In that vision, it was revealed to me that the water cannot be seen without pushing aside the green scum that covers it. That is to say, one cannot develop love of God or obtain his vision without work. Work means meditation, japa, and the like. The chanting of God's name and glories is work too. You may also include charity, sacrifice, and so on. If you want butter, you must let the milk turn to curd. It must be left in a quiet place. When the milk becomes curd, you must work hard to churn it. Only then can you get butter from the milk? Futility of mere study. Mahima Charan, that is true, sir. Work is certainly necessary. One must labor hard. Only then does one succeed. There is so much to read. The scriptures are endless. Master to Mahima Charan, how much of the scriptures can you read? What will you gain by mere reasoning? Try to realize God before anything else. Have faith in the Guru's words and work. If you have no Guru, then pray to God with a longing heart. He will let you know what He is like. What will you learn of God from books? As long as you are at a distance from the marketplace, you hear only an indistinct roar. But it is quite different when you are actually there. Then you hear and see everything distinctly. You hear people saying, "Here are your potatoes, take them and give me the money." From a distance, you hear only the rumbling noise of the ocean. Go near it, and you will see many boats sailing about, birds flying, and waves rolling. One cannot get true feeling about God from the study of books. This feeling is something very different from book learning. Books, scriptures, and science appear as mere dirt and straw after the realization of God. The one thing needful is to be introduced to the master of the house. Why are you so anxious to know beforehand how many houses and gardens and how many government securities the master possesses? The servants of the house would not allow you even to approach these, and they would certainly not tell you about their master's investments. Therefore, somehow or other, become acquainted with the master, even if you have to jump over the fence or take a few pushes before the servants. Then the master himself will tell you all about his houses and gardens and his government securities. And what is more, the servants and the doorkeeper will salute you when you are known to the master all love. Yearning for God, devotee. Now the question is how to become acquainted with the master laughter. Master, that is why I say that work is necessary. It will not do to say the God exists. It will not do to say that God exists and then idle away your time. You must reach God somehow or other. Call on Him in solitude and pray to Him. O Lord, reveal Thyself to me. Weep for Him with a longing heart. You roam about in search of woman and gold like a madman. Now be a little mad for God. Let people say, "This man has lost his head for God." Why not renounce everything for a few days and call on God in solitude? Work hard for his realization. What will you achieve by simply saying that God exists and doing nothing about it? There are big fish in the Halda Pukur, but can you catch them by merely sitting idly on the bank? Prepare some spiced bait and throw it into the lake. Then the fish will come from the deep water and you will see ripples that will make you happy. Perhaps a fish will jump with a splash and you will get a glimpse of it. Then you will be so glad. Milk must be turned to curd and the curd must be churned. Only then will you get butter to Mahima. What a nuisance! Someone must show God to a man while he himself sits idly by all the while. Someone must extract the butter and hold it in front of his mouth. Oh love, what a bother! Someone else must catch the fish and give it to him. A man wanted to see the king. The king lived in the inner court of the palace, beyond 7 gates. No sooner did the man pass the first gate than he exclaimed, "Oh, where is the king?" But there were 7 gates, and he must pass them one after another before he could see the king. Mahima Charan, by what kind of work can one realize God, Master? It is not that God can be realized by this work or not by that. The vision of God depends on His grace. Still, a man must work a little with longing for God in his heart. If he has longing, he will receive the grace of God. Favorable conditions for realization of God. To attain God, a man must have certain favorable conditions: the company of holy men, discrimination, and the blessings of a real teacher. Perhaps his elder brother takes the responsibility for the family. Perhaps his wife has spiritual qualities and is very virtuous. Perhaps he is not married at all or entangled in worldly life. He succeeds when conditions like these are fulfilled. In a certain family, a man lay seriously ill. He was at the point of death. Someone said, "Here is a remedy. First, it must rain when the star Swati is in the ascendant. Then some of that rainwater must collect in a human skull. Then a frog must come there and a snake must chase it. And as the frog is about to be beaten by the snake, it must jump away and the poison of the snake must drop into the skull. You must prepare a medicine from this poison and give it to the patient. Then he will live." The head of the family consulted the almanac about the star and set out at the right moment. With great longing of heart, he began to search for the different ingredients. He prayed to God, "O Lord, I shall succeed only if you bring together all the ingredients." As he was roaming about, he actually saw a skull lying on the ground. Presently there came a shower of rain. Then the man exclaimed, "Oh gracious Lord, I have got the rainwater under Swati and the skull too. What is more, some of the rain has fallen into the skull." Now he saw a poisonous snake approaching. His joy knew no bounds. He became so excited that he could feel the thumping of his own heart. "Oh God," he prayed, "now the snake has come too. I have procured most of the ingredients. Please be gracious and give me the remaining ones." No sooner did he pray thus than a frog hopped up. The snake pursued it as they came near the skull, and the snake was about to bite the frog. The frog jumped over the skull, and the snake's poison fell into it. The man began to dance, clapping his hands for joy. So I say that one gets everything through yearning. A man cannot realize God unless he renounces everything mentally. A sadhu cannot lay things up. Birds and wandering monks do not make provision for the morrow. Such is the state of my mind that I cannot carry even clay in my hand. Once when Hriday tormented me, I thought of leaving this place and going to Banaras. I thought of taking some clothes with me. But how could I take money? So I could not go to Banaras. All laughed. To Mahima, "You are a householder, therefore you should hold both to this and to that, both to the world and to God." Mahima, "Sir, can one who holds to that also hold to this?" Master, once sitting on the bank of the Ganges near the Panchavati, holding a rupee in one hand and clay in the other. I discriminated. The rupee is the clay is verily the rupee, and the rupee is verily the clay, and then threw the rupee into the river. But I was a little frightened. How foolish of me to offend the goddess of fortune. I thought, what shall I do if she does not provide me with food any more than like Hajra, I sought help in a ruse. I said to the goddess mother, may you dwell in my heart. Once the divine mother was pleased with a man's austerities and said to him, you may ask a favor of me. O mother, said he, if you are so pleased with me, then grant that I may eat from a gold plate with my grandchildren. Now, in one boon the man got everything, grandchildren, wealth and gold plate, all love. When the mind is freed from woman and gold, it can be directed to God and become absorbed in Him. It is the bound alone with who can be freed. The moment the mind turns away from God, it is bound. When does the lower needle of a pair of scales move away from the upper one? When one pen is pressed down by a weight, woman and gold is the weight. Why does a child cry on coming out of its mother's womb? With its cry, it says, as it were, just see where I am now. In my mother's womb, I was meditating on the lotus feet of God, but see where I am now. To Mahima, you should renounce mentally, live the life of a householder in a spirit of detachment. Mahima, can a man live in the world if his mind is once directed to God? See God in the world, Master. Why not? Where will he go away from the world? I realize that wherever I live, I am always in the Ayodhya of Rama. This is whole world. This whole world is Rama's Ayodhya. After receiving instruction from his teacher, Rama said that he would renounce the world. Dasartha sent the sage Vasishtha to Rama to dissuade him. Vasishtha found him filled with intense renunciation. He said to Rama, first of all, reason with me, Rama. Then you may leave the world. May I ask you if this world is outside God? If that is so, then you may give it up. Rama found that it is God alone who has become the universe and all its living beings. Everything in the world appears real on account of God's reality behind it. Thereupon Rama became silent. In the world, a man must fight against passions like lust and anger, against many desires, against attachment. It is convenient to fight from inside a food from his own home. At home, he gets his food and the other help from his wife. In the Kali Yuga, the life of a man depends entirely on food. It is better to get food at one place than to knock at seven doors for it. Living at home is like facing the battle from a fort. Live in the world like a cast off leaf in a gale. Such a leaf is sometimes blown inside a house and sometimes to a rubbish heap. The leaf goes wherever the wind blows, sometimes to a good place and sometimes to a bad. Now God has put you in the world, that is good. Stay here. Again, when He lifts you from here and puts you in a better place, that will be time enough to think about what to do then. God has put you in the world. What can you do about it? Resign everything to Him. Surrender yourself at His feet. Then there will be no more confusion. Then you will realize that it is God who does everything. All depends on the will of Rama. A story of the will of Rama. A devotee. What is that story about the will of Rama? Master. In a certain village there lived a weaver. He was a very pious soul. Everyone trusted him and loved him. He used to sell his goods in the marketplace. When a customer asked him the price of a piece of cloth, the weaver would say, by the will of Rama, the price of the yarn is 1 rupee and the labor 4 annas. By the will of Rama, the profit is 2 annas. The price of the cloth by the will of Rama is 1 rupee and 6 annas. Such was the people's faith in the weaver, and the customer would at once pay the price and take the cloth. The weaver was a real devotee of God. After finishing his supper in the evening, he would spend long hours in the worship hall of meditation on God and chanting his name and glories. Now, late one night, the weaver would not get to sleep. He was sitting in the worship hall, smoking now and then, when a band of robbers happened to pass that way. They wanted a man to carry their goods and said to the weaver, come with us. So saying, they led him off by the hand. After committing a robbery in a house, they put a load of things on the weaver's head, commanding him to carry them. Suddenly the police arrived and the robbers ran away, but the weaver with his load was arrested. He was kept in the lockup for the night. Next day he was brought before the magistrate for trial. The villagers learnt what had happened and came to court. They said to the magistrate, your honor, this man could never commit a robbery. Thereupon the magistrate asked the weaver to make his statement. The weaver said, your honor, by the will of Rama, I finished my meal at night. Then, by the will of Rama, I was sitting in the worship hall. It was quite late at night by the will of Rama. By the will of Rama, I had been thinking of God and chanting his name and glories, when by the will of Rama, a band of robbers passed that way. By the will of Rama, they dragged me with them. By the will of Rama, they committed a robbery in a house, and by the will of Rama, they put a load on my head. Just then, by the will of Rama, the police arrived, and by the will of Rama, I was arrested. Then, by the will of Rama, the police kept me in the lockup for the night, and this morning, by the will of Rama, I have been brought before your honor. The magistrate realized that the weaver was a pious man and ordered his release. On his way home, the weaver said to his friends, by the will of Rama, I have been released. Whether a man should whether a man should be a householder or a monk depends on the will of Rama. Surrender everything to God and do your duties in the world. What else can you do? A clerk was once sent to prison. After the prison term was over, he was released. Now, what do you think he did? Cut capers or do his old clerical work? If the householder becomes a Jivan Mukta, then he can easily live in the world if he likes. A man who has attained knowledge does not differentiate between this place and that place. All places are the same to him. He who thinks of that place and also thinks of this place. Master's first meeting with Kesab. When I first met Kesab at Jayagopal's garden house, I remarked he is the only one who has dropped his tail. At this people laughed. Kesab said to them, "Don't laugh. There must be some meaning in his words. Let us ask him." Thereupon I said to Kesab, "The tadpole, so long as it has not dropped its tail, lives only in the water. It cannot move about on dry land, but as soon as it drops its tail, it hops out on the bank. Then it can live without live both on land and in water. Likewise, as long as a man has not dropped his tail of ignorance, he can live only in the water of the world. But when he drops his tail, that is to say, when he attains the knowledge of God, then he can roam about as a free soul or live as a householder if he likes." Mahimacharn and the other devotees remained spellbound listening to the Master's words. Master and Devendra Tagore. Master, once I visited Devendra Nath Tagore with Mathur Babu. I said to Mathur, "I have heard that Devendra Tagore thinks of God. I should like to see him." "All right," said Mathur, "I will take you to him. We were fellow students in the Hindu college and I am very friendly with him." We went to Devendra's house. Mathur and Devendra had not seen each other for a long time. Devendra said to Mathur, "You have changed a little. You have grown fat around the stomach." Mathur said, referring to me, "He has come to see you. He is always mad about God." I wanted to see Devendra's physical marks and said to him, "Let me see your body." He pulled up his shirt and I found that he had very fair skin, tinted red. His hair had not yet turned grey. At the outside, I noticed a little vanity in Devendra, and is not that natural? He had such wealth, such scholarship, such name and fame. Noticing that streak of vanity, I asked Mathur, "Well, is vanity the outcome of knowledge or ignorance? Can a knower of Burma have such feeling as, 'I am a scholar, I am a jnani, I am a rich'?" While I was talking to Devendra, I suddenly got into that state of mind in which I can see a man as he really is. I was convulsed with laughter inside. In that state, I regard scholars and the book learned as mere straw. If I see that a scholar has no discrimination and renunciation, I regard him as a worthless straw. I see that he is like a vulture which soars high but fixes its look on a charnel pit down below. I found that Devendra had combined both yoga and bhoga in his life. He had a number of children, all young. The family physician was there. Thus, you see, though he was a jnani, yet he was preoccupied with worldly life. I said to him, "You are the King Janka of this Kali Yuga, holding to one as well as the other." He drank his milk from a brimming cup. "I have heard that you live in the world and think of God, so I have come to see you. Please tell me something about God." He recited some text from the Vedas. He said, "This universe is like a chandelier, and each living being is a light in it. Once meditating in the Panchavati, I too had a vision like that. I found his words agreed with my vision and I thought he must be very great man. I asked him to explain his words. He said, God has created man to manifest his own glory. Otherwise, who could know this universe? Everything becomes dark without the lights in the chandelier. One cannot even see the chandelier itself. We talked a long time. Devendra was pleased and said to me, you must come to our Brahmos Maj festival. That I said depends on the will of God. You can see the state of my mind. There is no knowing when God will put me into a particular state. Devendra insisted, no, you must come. But put on your cloth and wear a shawl over your body. Someone might say something unkind about your untidiness, and that would hurt me. No, I replied, I cannot promise that. I cannot be a babu. Devendra and Mathur laughed. The very next day, Mathur received a letter from Devendra forbidding me to go to the festival. He wrote that it would be ungentlemanly of me not to cover my body with a shawl. All laugh. Colonel Vishwanath. There is another big man, Captain. Though a man of the world, he is a great lover of God. To Mahima, talk to him sometime. He knows the Vedas, the Vedanta, the Bhagavata, the Gita, the Adhyatma Ramayana, and other scriptures by heart. You will find that out when you talk. You will find that out when you talk to him. He has great piety. Once I was, he has great piety. Once I was going along a street in Badanagar and he held an umbrella over my head. He invites me to his house and shows me great attention. He fans me, massages my feet and feeds me with various dishes. Once at his house, I went into Samadhi in the toilet and he took care of me there, though he is so particular about his orthodox habits. He did not show any abhorrence for the place. He has many expenses. He supports his brothers who live in Banaras. His wife was a miserly woman at first. Now she is so burdened by the expenses of the family that she cannot spend all the money she would like to. Captain's wife said to me, he does not enjoy worldly life. That's why he once said he would renounce the world. True, every now and then he expressed that desire. Captain was born in a family of devotees. His father was a soldier. I have heard that on the battlefield he would worship Shiva with one hand and hold a naked sword in the other. Captain is a strong upholder of orthodox conventions. Because of my visiting Keshav Chandra Sen, he stopped coming here for a month. He said to me that Keshav had violated the social conventions. He dined with the English, had married his daughter into another caste and had lost his own caste. I said to Captain, what do I care for such things? Keshav chants the name of God, so I go to him to hear about God. I eat only the plum. What do I care about the thorns? But Captain remained stubborn. He said to me, why do you see Keshav? I answered him rather sharply, but I don't go to him for money. I go there to hear the name of God. And how is it that you visit the Viceroy's house? He is a Malecha. How can you be in his company? That silenced a little. but he is a great devotee. When he worships, he performs arti with camphor. When he recites hymns, he becomes a totally different person. He becomes absorbed. A sense of Vedanta. To Mahimacharan, in the light of Vedantic reasoning, the world is illusory, unreal as a dream. The Supreme Soul is the witness of the three states of waking, dream, and deep sleep. These things are in your line of thought. The waking state is only as real as the dream. Let me tell you a story that agrees with your attitude. There was a farmer who lived in the countryside. He was a real Gyani. He earned his living by farming. He was married, and after many years a son was born to him, whom he named Haru. The parents loved the boy dearly. This was natural since he was the one precious gem in the family. On account of his religious nature, the farmer was loved by the villagers. One day he was working in the field when a neighbor came and told him that Haru had had an attack of cholera. The farmer at once returned home and arranged for treatment for the boy, but Haru died. The other members of the family were grief stricken, but the farmer acted as if nothing had happened. He consoled his family and told them that grieving was futile. Then he went back to his field. On returning home, he found his wife weeping even more bitterly. She said to him, "How heartless you are! You have not shed one tear for the child." The farmer replied quietly, "Shall I tell you why I have not wept? I had a very vivid dream last night. I dreamed I had become a king. I was the father of 8 sons and was very happy with them. Then I woke up. Now I am greatly perplexed. Should I weep for those 8 sons or for this one Haru?" The farmer was a Jnani, therefore he realized that the waking state is as unreal as the dream state. There is only one eternal substance, and that is the Atma. But for my part, I accept everything, Turiya, and also the three states of waking, dream, and deep sleep. I accept all three states. I accept all Brahma and also Maya, the universe and its living beings. If I accepted less, I should not get the full weight. A devotee, the full weight, how is that? All love. Qualified Advaita Master. Brahma is qualified by the universe and its living beings. At the beginning, while following the method of not this, one has to eliminate the universe and its living beings. But as long as I consciousness remains, one cannot but feel that it is God Himself who has become everything. He alone has become the 24 cosmic principles. When a man speaks of the essential part of the bell fruit, me- he means its flesh only and not the seeds and shell. But if he wants to speak of the total weight of the fruit, it will not do for him to weigh only the flesh. He must accept the whole thing, seeds and shell and flesh. Seeds and shell and flesh belong to one and the same fruit. Syn- Synthesis of Sankara and Ramanuja. The Nitya and the Leela belong to the same reality. Therefore, I accept everything, the relative as well as the absolute. I don't explain away the world as Maya. What I do, what, what I to do that I should get short weight. Mahimachan, it is good synthesis from the absolute to the relative and from the relative to the absolute. Master, the Gyanis regard everything as illusory, like a dream, but the Bhaktas accept all the states. The milk flows only in driblets from the Gyani, all love. There are some cows that pick and choose their fodder, and their milk flows only in driblets. But cows that don't discriminate so much and eat whatever they get give milk in torrents. A superior devotee of God accepts both the absolute and the relative. Therefore, he is able to enjoy the divine even when his mind comes down from the absolute. Such a devotee is like the cows that gives milk in torrents or love. Mahima. But the milk of a cow that eats without discrimination smells a little. Laughter. Master with a smile. That is true, no doubt. Therefore, that milk should be boiled. One should boil such milk over the fire a little while. There will be no smell whatever if you boil the milk over the fire of knowledge or love. At this point, I conclude this video. Next video number 37 will start with chapter number 33, explanation of Om. Namaskar.